Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today I'm planting up 3 new varieties of elephant ear corms. Okay, so elephant ears are very new to me. What attracted me to them is their height and whimsical quality. That is one of my big goals for my garden this year, is to create more height and of course whimsical quality, because I love whimsy in my garden. And I've really felt like elephant ears were a really cost effective way to approach that for a couple of reasons. You can get some corms or bulbs really cheap, which is nice. You can start them off yourself, which is great. And they can be saved from year to year. So I can dig them up at the end of the year, overwinter them inside, and then replant them outside. And they're just going to get bigger, more beautiful leaves, and they're going to produce additional corms on them each season. So I can continue to grow the amount that I have. And by doing that, it's just really cost effective, but then also hits a lot of my goals for the future, which I'm really into right now. I'm really trying to be as cost effective as I possibly can. So theoretically, these corms that I purchased 6. Hopefully next year, I'll have those 6 and I'll be on my way to some additional ones as well, which is definitely a possibility. Pups take about 2 years to produce. Pups are the additional corms that they'll grow. And so that'll be nice. In a couple of years, I should have at least double. A lot of corms produce like anywhere from 2 to 4 pups each season. So that'll be really fun too. You can actually see some smaller additional ones growing on this particular one. Now what I'm going to be doing today is I'm actually going to be potting them up in some containers. Some of the larger ones are going to go in larger containers. The smaller ones are going to go in some smaller containers. Now you really have to start potting your elephant ears up early. I feel a little bit behind. They take a long time to bring out of dormancy. Sometimes it can take as long as a month to really start growing on and putting on some growth at the top point and even starting to show some of their foliage. So I feel like this is something I potentially should have started in January. That's fine, I'm learning, and it's not too late to start them now. So for those of you in my colder climates, now is still a really great time for you to go ahead and pot these up inside. They don't necessarily need a lot of light right now. They really need heat. They need heat and a little bit of water to wake them up, to tell them it's time to start growing. Then once they really start putting on some growth, you can put them under grow lights or near a bright window that gets at least 8 hours, maybe 8 to 10 hours of light per day. Or if you have a greenhouse, you can put them outside in that greenhouse. Next year, I will definitely start these earlier to get a jump start on their growth, so that once I get past my last frost date, which we already are past, March 15th was my last estimated frost date, and my 10 to 14 day forecast looks wonderful right now. In the future, I will start them earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and start them now in hopes that I'll have some beautiful leaves to plant out in the summer. Now, I don't know where I want to put them yet. That's why they're not going directly outside into the ground. And I still have some cooler temps. We're still hitting some 40s, 50s, 60s, right around that range for spring. Whereas the elephant ears really benefit from a much warmer climate. And since my house is around the 70 to 72 degree mark, I think it's better to start them inside and they'll get more growth on before I start moving them outside. Now, one of the hardest things about dealing with a elephant ear is being able to tell what's the top versus the bottom. Now it's going to be pretty easy on some of these corms right here, because obviously this is the growth point right here and it's ready to go. The bottom typically is going to have a lot of little holes in it, which is going to look a little bit weird. Those holes are from where last season's roots came, and then of course those dried back and went dormant. So you can kind of see that. Typically, it's also going to be really rough on the bottom, because typically these grow long like this. And so like this one corm right here will grow a new corm on top, and then this one will slide down and over the seasons, this one will get lower down. The ones lower down tend to disintegrate eventually, and then you cut it off. And where that cut is made is typically where the roughness is. So it's kind of a little bit easier to tell the top from the bottom in that regard. Basically, you want to look for the little holes for the roots. Those are on the bottom, and you want to look for a growth point on the top. So there are actually two different varieties of plants that are known as elephant ears, or their common name, they're called elephant ears. Alocasia and colocasia, both commonly known as elephant ears. So let's talk a little bit about the difference. Both of them are wonderful plants. Okay, so the alocasia has thicker, somewhat upturned leaves and distinct leaf veining, so very distinct veining on them. Many of them have variegated veining, which I think is super cool. I do feel like the alocasia are a little bit harder to locate. There's over 100 different species of the alocasia, and their leaves can be anywhere from 8 inches to 3 feet. They tend to be, coloration is from green to burgundy to nearly black. Now the colocasia I feel like is a little bit easier to find. The leaves are thinner. The tips of the leaves will turn downward a little bit. The leaf veins aren't as plump as the alocasia leaf veins are. The leaves on the colocasia can be up to 60 inches, like 5 feet. I mean, huge. And for their coloring, they tend to be chartreuse to Kelly green to burgundy to variegated. So they have a wide variety as well. Now, all the varieties I'm starting today, I believe, are colocasia. This one is a little bit out the window because I don't really know. It was a cheap bulb from Walmart that had very little information regarding it. And so I'm going to guess that it's colocasia because I don't think that the alocasia would be so readily available at such a cheap price at somewhere like Walmart. Okay, so let's talk about the varieties. So like I was just saying with these two corms are from Walmart. They were $5.42 each. They were a nice, good size. I chose ones that were nice and firm. They didn't feel mushy, which is really important because you definitely don't want any Buffy's over here. You definitely don't want any kind of rot or mushiness on your corms. And basically the only information that's provided on these is just a little bit on the sticker about how to plant it, how far apart to plant them, plant after the last frost, and that their height is about 5 feet. So that's pretty much all I got on these two varieties. Okay, the next variety is called Aloha, and I purchased this from Costco, and I think it was 2 elephant ears for $13.99, maybe that was it. The Aloha is a colocasia variety. It likes full sun to partial shade. It is a combination of teal and bronze with a touch of lime among the ribbing. These are stupid gorgeous. I'm very excited about them. It thrives in heat and humidity. Heart-shaped leaves are about 2 feet long. It is hardy in zones 9 to 11, but it's suitable to grow in zones 3 to 11. So if you are not in zones 9 to 11, then you're going to have to lift these every winter. I will be lifting these at the end of the fall, beginning of winter. And so I will have a video at that time showing you that whole process. And these get about 36 to 48 inches tall. Okay, the next variety I got is called White Lava. It is also a colocasia. It's full sun to partial shade. It has large heart-shaped leaves, cool green color, highlighted with bright white veins and streaks that form a star. And there is a bold splash of purple where the stem connects to the leaf. Thrives on heat and humidity. It's about 4 to 5 feet tall with up to 2 foot long leaves. Hardy in 8 to 11, zones 8 to 11, suitable in 3 to 11. Even though I'm zone 8, I'm still going to lift these along with all my other ones. So let's go ahead and clear the space and get started on potting them up. Okay, so I'm not sure where I'm going to put these yet. Most likely they're going to be centerpieces in some containers, potentially in some of those beautiful like wrought iron metal containers that I got from that big warehouse sale. I would love to have those, are pretty tall, at least 5 feet, and then have the elephant ears coming up over them. Don't you love my little dance to show you guys? And so I'm not ready to plant those up. That's going to be a whole thing where I have to put down a concrete pad and then place them and then run drip. So going ahead and getting these started, hopefully by the time these start to leaf out, then I'll be ready to start planting them up in those actual containers. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with just a basic potting soil. Now you can, with this, I don't typically pre-mix potting soil. It's just not my thing, but it is beneficial to pre-mix this potting soil with a little bit of water. Go ahead and pre-dampen it, pre-moisten it. That is very helpful to getting these started. You definitely don't want to be watering these corms a whole lot. They don't have roots right now. So if they're sitting in a lot of moisture, the corm is just going to rot. There's nothing to take the moisture, like utilize the moisture, because there's no roots. However, we need a little bit of moisture to start wakening these up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pre-moisten this soil. I think it's also going to be helpful for holding these corms in place. So a little bit different than my typical way of starting plants. So I wanted to make sure that I showed y'all what I was doing. All right, so I'm just going to make a little well. I don't want my soil to be like overly moist, just a little bit moist. I feel like I'm making bread dough, pasta dough. Okay, so you got that nicely moist. All right, so we just basically, you'd be able to squeeze it so it kind of holds together, but there's not a bunch of water pouring out of it. So that is super important. So let's start with these ones from Walmart. Since these corms are so much bigger, I'm starting with a larger container. This is a gallon container. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put in a couple of big handfuls, just like that. And then I'm just going to nestle my corm down in there. And then I'm going to cover the corm up to just where the growth points are peeking out. Simple like that. Now, when you are starting these outside, you typically want to bury them 1 to 3 inches below the soil level. And the reason you want to do that, the top of the corm, 1 to 3 inches below the soil level. The reason you want to do that is because, especially if you have an area with high winds, you want to make sure that you're giving the corm the best ability to be stable and stay upright in high winds. Because you got to think about, you have this little corm, you're just getting started on this corm, so it hasn't grown in length over the years. And so you want to make sure that you have it stable enough so that when you do have these big, beautiful, gorgeous leaves, that it doesn't get blown over and pulled out. Now, the roots should hold it in place. If it creates a really good root supply, you should be fine. But I'm going to go ahead and just start it just so I can see a little bit of the growth peeking out. Let me pull y'all in so you can see better. All right, so let's do the next Walmart one. We're just going to toss in a couple of handfuls like that. It's maybe 3 to 4 inches at the base. And I'm removing, like this had some staples in it to hold it in place. Removing those staples. And remember, we're checking for any sponginess, and I don't feel any. So I'm just going to nestle that down, and then we'll go ahead and fill the soil in around the sides. Now, I do not plan on watering this guy for quite a while, like probably at least a week to 2 weeks, because I don't want to overwater it. Just like that. Okay, let's go ahead and open up the white lava and see what that looks like. Ooh, these feel super dry and desiccated, and these are very small, but they will grow over the years. They're okay though, like they don't feel mushy, so that's good to know, but definitely smaller. So I'm going to start with a much smaller container. Put some soil in the base, and then I'm going to take it, and this is the top. You can see where the growth point is, and of course here's all your roots down here. So I'm just going to push that in, and then I'm going to just lightly top it with the soil, maybe about 1 inch of soil. Same thing, here's my growth point here. These are actually some pups on the side. Here's all of my roots down low. These guys are super dormant. I bet these take up to a month to wake up. All right, and got that planted too. All All right, let's take a look at the Aloha. This actually feels heavier than the white lava container. Yeah, these are definitely bigger bulbs or corms, and they're not as desiccated as the other ones. Still gonna go ahead and start them in these smaller containers. You can see all your growth points right here. It has a lot of baby pups on it. And then we'll cover over the top. Now notice I didn't put any like fertilizer, nothing like that in these at the time being. It doesn't really need it right now. It has what it needs in the actual corm. The last one, this one actually has some growth happening on it. See if I have just enough soil. Just like that. Okay, I'm gonna get these labeled. I'm just gonna call the ones from Walmart, I'm gonna call them Walmart. You will therefore be known as the Walmart elephant ear. Okay, got 6 of these planted up. So let me show you what I'm gonna do to set them up in the grow lights. Okay, so I'm just gonna be putting them on the bottom shelf here. Now they will be under my grow lights for 14 hours a day. Light is not necessary to wake them up. So it's really just having a warm space and water that's going to get them started. Then once they start showing growth off the top, that's when you need to get them into light. I'm just going to go ahead and put them here because this is adding an extra layer of warmth to them because I definitely want them to be nice and warm. I did not put them in a water reservoir tray because I want to make sure that these have excellent drainage, and I also want to remind myself that I don't want to just pour water and allow these to sit in water in a reservoir tray. When the time comes for watering them, I will probably take these to my kitchen sink and put water over the top with, the little hose attachment, a little sprayer, and then allow them to drain out really well before bringing them back under the lights. Once these really start to put on a little bit of growth, obviously I will have to take them out of from under this light and potentially move them outside. These probably would do pretty good in my greenhouse right now because when you close up my greenhouse, it is very hot and humid in it, and that would be excellent for these. However, I actually think I'm going to take my greenhouse down in the next week or so. I'm kind of past the point where I need a greenhouse anymore because we are past the point of our last frost date, and I'm planting so much already out in the garden that if the time comes and there happens to be a freeze, most of my time is going to be spent covering stuff up, and I would have very minimal things in the actual greenhouse. Plus, I'm going to be installing a new garden there, so I want to make sure I go ahead and get it moved out. But these are looking really good. This video, it didn't end up being very long, so I actually have a sweet shrub bare root plant that I need to get started. So let's go ahead and mess around with that. Okay, so several of y'all have been asking about this shrub that has been sitting here on my table for several weeks. I picked this up from Tractor Supply Company. It is called a sweet shrub. Says it's a late spring bloom time. I've wanted to grow sweet shrub before, and a lot of the plants I've seen, are like $20, $25 online. I don't typically see this in my local nurseries to purchase. So when I saw this at Tractor Supply as bare root at only $6.99, I was very excited about doing this. So this is known as a sweet shrub, a Carolina allspice. It's an easy to grow perennial. It is hardy in zones 4 through 9. It prefers full sun to part shade. It's a late spring bloom time, and the plant height is about 6 to 9 feet tall. The bloom size is 2 inches. Its bloom color is a deep maroon, and its foliage is a dark green. And it says the size of the plant is 12 to 18 inches. But I'm excited to get this started. It is in its dormant spot. It says in my particular area, you would plant this in January to May. So that's right about now. Now I could start this outside, and that is definitely something for most of y'all. You can do that outside if you want. However, for those of you who've been watching me for a while, for bare roots, I have better luck potting them up and get them started inside first. And the reason being is a couple of different things. I can control the weather, which is great. And I remember to water them and not let them dry out, which is also very important. So that's what works best for me. So let's go ahead and get this guy started. Now, when I am starting a bare root shrub, I like to do a mix of potting soil and compost to get started. I don't typically add a slow release fertilizer because when I plant it in the ground is when I'm going to add the slow release fertilizer to it. So got a little bit of compost in here. Maybe about a 1-to-4 ratio of compost to soil. And I'm just going to mix this up, and I am starting dry, which is different than what I was doing with the elephant ear corms. So I have a gallon-sized pot right here. I'm going to go ahead and just throw a handful at the base, no big deal. And then let's open this guy up. Slide it out. It's already got a little bit of green growth, and that's something you want to look for when choosing bare roots. Is you want to make sure you can see a little bit of the growth or that the root still feels nice and pliable. You don't want it to be too dried out. So here's my root right there, looking good. I got one little green branch on there. I'm just going to mix this existing soil in. And I'm going to come here, I put a little bit more at the base. Yeah. And I'm just going to hold my root. So let me show you a couple things. So right here is the crown right here, okay? We want to make sure that that crown is about an inch below the surface of the soil. We don't want to go up really high, but at least an inch below the surface. You can see we're trying to get some more growth right there as well. But the crown, we don't want the crown sitting above the surface. We definitely want it below the surface. So I'm going to kind of hold this root in place. And then I'm just going to go handful by handful, working it my way around, giving it a little shake to make sure that the soil is working down around the roots. We don't want to smash all the roots together. We want the soil to just kind of naturally work through them. All right, I'm going to firm it up a little bit, not a ton, just a little bit. We want to still have loose soil to make sure the roots work through them. And there we go. We've got our sweet shrub planted up. So let me show you the process with this on how I put it under my grow lights and how I water it. Okay, so we are under the dining room table. And over here, I've got several of my bare roots. Over here, a stilby, bleeding heart. I've got my begonias all tucked in under here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move some of these over a little bit. And I'm going to nestle my pot right there in the container right there. And then what I will do is I already got a little bit of water in here, but I will allow this plant to soak up water from below. Instead of watering it from the top, allow it to soak up water from below. It is going to get light 14 to 16 hours a day. I think I do 16 hours a day, and soak up the water from below. When this gets dry down here, I'll add more water. You typically want the water to soak up within about 24 hours. So fairly quickly. You don't want it to sit in water if it doesn't have to. This is where it will basically live for the time being until it puts on some new growth. And when the time is right, I have a location kind of picked out outside. We will plant it out into the garden. I'm really excited to see what this one looks like. Okay, so that's a good day. We've got all of the elephant ears potted up, getting started, waking them up from their dormancy, and now we've got that sweet shrub bare root potted up too. So those were two really big things that I needed to get done. The next big things I need to get done are lilies and gladiolas. I have been collecting gladiola bulbs thinking that I didn't have very much, y'all. I just counted up and there's 250. I don't know what I was thinking. I am not a flower farm. I don't, what was I thinking? I might need to take some of them back. It's a little ridiculous. I need to get those started going as well. Since my tulips ended up being such a disaster, I am pretty much just going to pull them at this point. I'm over it, and then go ahead and plant all the gladiolas in those grow bags that were holding the tulips. But with 250 gladiolas, I'm going to need some more grow bags. I do have some more around here. I'll have to locate them. So that'll be an upcoming project. Lilies, I have a bunch of varieties of lilies that I'm starting this year. Some of those are going to go in raised gardens. Some of them are going to be tucked into the west facing side yard, which will be fun. That's also another big project. I have 2 areas of the side garden that need to be cleaned up. Actually, I might start some of that tomorrow, I think. Go out there, start cleaning that, cutting back all the perennials, fertilizing everything, planting some new plants, including bulbs there. We are go, go, go. I wanted to also address being overwhelmed. So I think on a lot of these videos, like I try to just be very upfront with how I am in the videos and what I'm doing and the mess ups and screw ups. But I also want it to be like, this is such an exciting time of year in spring and also overwhelming. So if you're feeling that way as a gardener, you're not alone. I definitely feel overwhelmed as well. I can't get things done fast enough because like I'm one person, right? And even though gardening, with the exception of being a mom, which is my actual full-time job, gardening is my hobby, but also a part-time job with all the YouTube and the social media and stuff as well. Even with that and having like allocated hours every day to garden, it's a lot. It's still a ton. So I wanted to tell you all, do things on your own time. Do things on your own schedule. Don't feel like you need to be keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up with the gardeners of YouTube. Do what works best for you, your location, your gardening. Remember, gardening is supposed to bring peace, not stress, although we all know it brings stress too because we care so much about our gardens. But I just wanted to remind everybody, as I'm reminding myself, that you're doing a good job. Gardening is supposed to be fun. Gardening is supposed to be peaceful. Take what you want from gardening. And if you don't get to a chore or you didn't get something planted, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. So just a reminder, all of y'all, but also a big reminder to myself. It's okay if I don't get to everything in my garden. It is what it is. My garden will still be beautiful and fine. I might be out a couple of dollars, but it's not the end of the world. All right, you all, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Drop me some comments on your experience with elephant ears. I am so excited to get these out in the garden. Now, I've grown these in the past where I purchased the already started corm from the local nursery, and I had planted these in other gardens. This is the first time starting all the corms myself with the idea of lifting them each season and continuing to, grow on these corms and plants and multiply them throughout my garden. So a more cost effective, but also more labor intensive way of doing it. But drop me your comments if you lift your corms and save them, what varieties that you really like of elephant ears. Do you typically go with a more couture variety like the white lava and the aloha, or do you stick to the big box, Walmart corms? Let me know your thoughts on all of that. And as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every time you guys comment, truthfully, it just makes my day. I really like responding to your comments. I'm learning so much every single time I post a video. I learn a couple of things from other gardeners, and I'm just very appreciative of that. And make sure you check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.